For any normal awakened, willingly cutting their own life in half before an unpredictable arena battle would be suicide. But I was not a normal fighter, and I did not have the luxury of playing safe. The ruthless elites of the city were already mobilizing their supreme tier hunters, and my 30-day timer was already ticking down. I did not just need victory. I needed overwhelming power as fast as possible. My eyes burned with anticipation as I stared at the system interface and locked in my decision.
Chose risquée aventure.
If the elites wanted a monster, I was about to become one they could never defeat. Stepping into Layer 3 of the Blood Prison Arena with exactly half my health already gone. The scorching heat of the battlefield washed over me instantly. I gripped my great sword in one hand and secured my healing gourd with the other, ready for a brutal fight. Across the sands, the massive iron gates suddenly exploded open, and the entire arena trembled beneath the thunderous pounding of charging hooves. Bursting into the arena was my opponent, a magnificent and incredibly rare 5th-tier beast. It was Santor, a fierce centaur warrior known as the Divine Knight of the Sun and the Silver Moon. She locked eyes with me, radiating absolute confidence. Calmly, she admitted she had heard how I defeated the Flame Demon on the lower floors, but arrogantly declared that my winning streak would end here against her impenetrable defense. I simply rested my glowing greatsword on my shoulder and smirked, telling her she was talking awfully big for someone who had not even raised her spear yet. That one insult was enough to set her off. With a furious roar, a blinding golden aura erupted from her armored body. Instantly, my system flashed a critical red warning. She had activated an unavoidable crowd control skill called Taunt. My muscles locked up as my body was completely hijacked. Forced to attack against my own will, I lunged forward with explosive speed and swung my greatsword with everything I had. I unleashed Bloodblade Torrent, sending a massive cross-shaped wave of destructive crimson energy ripping across the arena floor straight toward her chest. But the arrogant knight did not even move. She simply planted her hooves firmly into the sand, raised her arm, and activated Solar God Shield. A brilliant hexagonal barrier made of pure solar energy flared to life around her and effortlessly absorbed my devastating strike as if it were nothing. My colossal slash exploded against her glowing barrier, but the shield only shone brighter as it absorbed all my power. The Centaur Knight smirked and mocked me, saying my attacks were only charging her weapon. Her taunt spell forced my body to keep attacking, so I unleashed a furious barrage of crimson slashes that crashed endlessly against her shield, each strike feeding her power while my health dropped dangerously low. Then suddenly, a golden system notification appeared. The abnormal status effect had been shortened and the mind control instantly vanished, letting me regain control of my body. It was Benhita's spirit pendant. The resistance boost from our bond had saved me from exhausting myself. I steadied myself and realized the terrifying truth. Even with my blood blade and night damage bonus, her shield was still too strong to break with brute force. Across the arena, the knight froze in shock at how quickly I escaped her control, but her surprise soon turned into a cruel grin. She raised her weapon and declared that the Silver Moon Lance was now fully charged thanks to my attacks. And with my health already low, she was ready to finish the fight with one devastating blast. With a triumphant roar, she unleashed the full power of the Silver Moon Lance, a colossal beam of blinding energy tearing across the arena and erasing the ground where I stood a split second earlier. I barely twisted away and leapt into the air as the explosion ripped through the battlefield. When I landed on the scorched earth, the truth finally clicked. The aura in that attack felt familiar because it was mine. Her entire fighting style was a perfect counter loop. The solar shield did not just block my strikes. It absorbed my power and fed it straight into her spear, meaning the harder I attacked, the deadlier her counter became. Watching from the sidelines, Batwing Girl nearly stopped breathing, convinced I had finally met a wall I could not break. She was not wrong either. My health was already dangerously low, and my opponent was a walking fortress that punished me for fighting back. One mistake would end me instantly. But I did not come this far by playing by my enemy's rules. If my greatsword only made her stronger, then the answer was simple. I sprinted toward the arena wall, kicked off the stone, and launched high into the air straight at her. The centaur calmly braced behind her glowing barrier, expecting another explosive strike to absorb. But at the very peak of my jump, I did the last thing she expected. I let go of my greatsword. The massive blade flew forward with no aura at all, bounced harmlessly off her shield, and clattered onto the dirt. The arrogant knight blinked in confusion before bursting into laughter, mocking me for throwing away my only weapon and calling my pathetic surrender the most disappointing ending she had ever seen. She genuinely believed I had thrown away my only path to victory, mocking what she thought was a desperate surrender. She yelled at me to keep fighting and demanded that I hit her with real intent. So I did, just not with my greatsword. I lunged in completely unarmed and unleashed a rapid storm of bare-handed punches against her glowing barrier. With my weapon gone, my physical attack power dropped, meaning I was no longer feeding her shield significant energy. Combined with my boosted resistance shortening her taunt effect, the strategy worked perfectly. I was deliberately starving her counter loop and denying her the power needed to charge the Silver Moon Lance. Realizing what I was doing, her laughter faded, and she admitted that I had decoded her entire fighting style in moments. But her expression quickly turned sharp again. She warned me she did not reach the 5th tier by relying on defense alone. In a burst of speed, she closed the distance and drove her spear into my shoulder, blood scattering through the air and splashing across her armor. Looking down at me with arrogance, she asked what a weaponless fighter could possibly do now. I did not panic or react. Instead, I let out a calm, dark chuckle, grabbed the spear to lock her in place, and pulled a glowing magical staff from my coat. Smirking, I asked who decided swords were the only weapons that defined a warrior. Before she could respond, my system flashed red and I activated Blood Prison Burial. The blood that had splashed onto her skin ignited instantly, transforming into volatile crimson crystals that began forming directly on her body. The drops of my blood that splashed onto her skin erupted into glowing crimson tendrils, and because Blood Prison Burial allowed full control, I shaped them into binding chains instead of raw blasts. The chains whipped around her arms and torso, tightening with terrifying force and forcing her to drop her shield into the dirt. She stared at me in shock as the truth hit her. Every move I made, from discarding my sword to letting her spear strike me, was deliberate bait. I had intentionally allowed her to pierce my skin so my blood could bypass her barrier. She called my tactics dirty, but I simply laughed and told her. She thought I was on layer 3 while I had already been operating on layer 5. Without her shield, her counter system was useless. I reminded her that if I truly wanted her gone, the tendrils would have ended it already, but I wanted her as my next elite follower. Since she was a proud centaur knight, I chose to finish the fight in close combat. I leapt onto her back, locked my arm around her neck and chest, and pinned her completely. Leaning close, I whispered that it was time to tame her properly. From the sidelines, Batgirl blushed intensely at the dominance of the move. Beneath me, the arrogant knight struggled, but her pride quickly gave way to panic. She had walked straight into my trap, and with my grip secure and my aura pressing down on hers, she could not break free. The proud centaur knight struggled fiercely against Reborn's iron grip as her air dwindled, panic mixing with an unexpected thrill. Refusing to submit, she slammed her powerful hooves into the ground, threatening to drag them both down unless he released her. Reborn remained unmoved, his eyes glowing with cold intensity as he warned that he would no longer hold back. With a decisive surge of strength, he tightened his chokehold, the crushing pressure instantly overwhelming the elite warrior and knocking her unconscious, ending the fight. The arena erupted as the stunned announcer declared Harem the absolute winner of the Blood Prison arena's third floor, having defeated a seemingly unbeatable opponent through sheer tactical dominance. Yet the trial was far from over. Checking his system, Lee saw his stamina had dropped to a dangerous level after enduring her heavy blows. Without hesitation, he took out his magical gourd and drank its restorative contents, healing his injuries and regaining focus. The story gets crazier next. Subscribe and turn on notifications.